Now, many years ago, I remember reading about Yugoslavia's Tito and his efforts to manufacture cars. He had a brand called the Yugo, which is a version of the Italian-made Fiat Mini. He established the largest supermarket chain at that time in the 70s that was run by the state. In September 1970, this supermarket chain hosted Richard Nixon, US president. And Tito at the time boasted of the success of a socialist-run economy at the peak of the Cold War. Tito visited Tanzania's President Nyerere, with whom they shared some ideological fraternity, and they both made case in the newly independent African countries for the non-aligned movement. Many of you know Nyerere's thinking. His approach to the unity of Africa has had a lot of influence in the region, especially Ugandan leadership. Tito also had very close ties with Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser. I know young people really might be lost in what are all these names. But without context, you won't understand where you are heading. This is Africa's past. This is the past of the world that we need to study to deal with tomorrow. So Tito had close relations with Abdel Nasser, Muammar Gaddafi of Egypt. He even supported the independence of Algeria from France in 1954, and even more opposed the interference of the West in the then Zaire and the killing of Patrice Lumumba. History, interestingly, has a sense of irony. Uganda is hosting the Non-Aligned Movement Summit in July 2023 at a time when the grouping of more than 70 countries, and we're hosting about 130, and those of us interested in trade, in exports, in investment, in growing this economy, this is perhaps one of the largest exposures we've ever had beyond the 54 Commonwealth countries. So we are hosting 70 of these and above next year with this grouping whose purpose seemed to have ended with the Cold War, but it has recently been rejuvenated and it's gaining momentum because of the strained relations between Russia and the West over Ukraine. So in the last 2-3 weeks, when I was traveling through Serbia and Montenegro, the last nation state to break off from the Commonwealth of Yugoslavia, this history that I was mentioning was tugging at my heart, because it holds many lessons for our country and for our region. Yugoslavia is no more. It broke up in 2003 after years of American bombing of Serbia and some elements in the West supporting the breakup of the old country, just because of Serbia's involvement in the war in Kosovo. So when I was driving through these locations, these countries, I kind of felt, I don't know how it feels to be born in a country and now live in quotes a different country, yet one hasn't left their very place of birth or home. One country changed many times. Some generations, some of the people I met have witnessed both the old Yugoslavia and the new countries, and they are very emotional about what was lost in the breakup of Yugoslavia. Driving through the cities of this country, in one's mind, the debate about the unitary and federal state as forms of government come alive. This debate we have had in Uganda since 1961. So the Serb population suffered most during the First World War. So those of you who really like history like me might remember Gavrilo Principe, who shot and killed the Austro-Hungarian prince, starting off the First World War. In that war, Serbia lost 58% of its army, and 57% of all its total male population died from the effects of the war, directly and indirectly. This was the highest per capita number of deaths in the First World War. The Yugoslavia Kingdom, which was declared in 1929, included Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, North Macedonia, and Slovenia. If you have this map, the countries I'm mentioning, you would see them very well. So this Yugoslavia had a landmass roughly the size of Uganda, 255,000 square kilometers or thereabout. Tito, whose forces defeated Hitler, and his Axis forces. So I'm really mentioning things, again, you young people, you need to study in order to understand where we've come from as a world. So Tito, whose forces defeated Hitler, and his Axis forces, the powers that included Germany, Italy, and Japan, who would be later joined by Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Croatia in the 1944-45 war. This Tito would govern this loose federation till he died in 1980. And then after that, there was a string of weak, rotating presidencies, seemingly wanting to promote regional representation. They followed after Tito, and they broke up the country. So after strong leaders, there seems to be, not always, but quite often, there seems to be a natural flow of weak ones, whether in enterprises, in businesses, or in a country. The population or the employees tend to sadly judge the record of the previous strong leader against the current leader and their record. That's the expectation of human beings. They judge the new against the old, and often the new doesn't match up with the old, and expectations go down. So Tito held down simmering nationalistic feelings of the Croats, of the Slovenes, of the Serbs, Hungarians, Macedonians, etc. He held them together by building a growing economy that provided a brand of socialist liberalism which allowed workers to share directly in the profits of an enterprise and a strong army. So he kind of built, so you have a company, it's owned by the state, but the workers share in the profits at the end of the year. It was kind of socialist but liberal, kind of different from the economies of those days. And then, of course, he built a strong army that kept, for those 30 years, those various countries together under Yugoslavia. So when I was driving through these places and having dinners with people that we wanted to appoint trade representatives, there were stories that still abound in Serbia of how strong Tito was. How many times, for example, Stalin of Russia, Soviet Union, who was rivaling for influence in that area with Tito in the Balkans, Stalin tried to assassinate Tito 5 times, sending agents, and Tito would arrest those agents on all the 5 times, until Tito sent a letter to Stalin, and the letter said, and I quote, "Stop sending people to kill me. We have already captured 5 of them, one of them with a bomb and another with a rifle. If you don't stop sending killers, I'll send a very fast working one to Moscow, and I certainly won't have to send another one," close quote. That's how strong Tito was and how confident he was in what he was doing. None of those rotating presidencies after Tito kept a strong economy. None of them kept a versatile united army. The image of international Yugoslavia after Tito's death in May 1980 went down. So when IMF demanded restructuring of the economy in 1982, some regional fissures opened up, causing animosity between the developed north and western provinces, taking a higher cost to subsidize the poorer south and the east. This is politics, this is economy, and that's why for me the world is a lab, and history is a lab for studying, and it's like a petri dish for taking out the lessons you want to apply in your own region, in your own country. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
I'd like to hear from you. Please email us at info@tapmedia.com and visit our website at www.tapmedia.com. You can also visit our offices located at Tomosi Business Park, Luzira, Port Bell Road, or call 0414 220 702. Thank you.